Hello, this is Mike Alvarado with the Treasure Valley Product Managers, welcoming you to another conversation with an expert on the field of user experience. And an expert is someone who's done it for a long time and made a lot of mistakes, and as a consequence, they really know. And I think that's one of the things that our guest, Daryl, knew, who's the president and founder of Quantum Innovation and Execution. But I really am delighted to have Daryl here for another reason, because in the end, this is not academic or theoretical exercise, user experience. It's a hands-on kind of thing, and a hands-on technologist is really how I think about Daryl. So Daryl, maybe we can give the audience a little bit of background about the kind of products that you deal with, the kinds of business situations, and what's been your experience in the technology business.
So our experience in the technology business is mostly geared towards semiconductor, which is the components that go into, cell phones, mobile devices, computers, which, almost every person in the world uses as a user. So we look at it from that perspective, but also we deal with business processes and design and development and prototype, and so those are the types of things that we do, that we look at the user experience to benefit us.
Okay, so let's start with setting a framework for what your definition of user experience. What is it? What is it intended to mean? And what are the consequences, or what are the outcomes that you want user experiences to deliver?
Yeah, so that's a great question, and when I really looked at it from a question standpoint, like you just asked, it made it kind of difficult because there's so many different types of users, so many different types of situations, and so if we could really boil it down to one thing, our thought is that we always like to apply simplicity to everything. And what that means is things can be too simple and things can be too complex. Too simple is too basic, may not add any value. Too complex could be overwhelming, frustrating. And so we try to look for that in between where it's delivering more than just the basic need, but not too complex to overwhelm.
So let's dive into one of the areas. Now, I understand communications has been one of the industries that have been, consumers of the products you're developing. And so they have a lot of very specific requirements, and yet they're looking to you as the technologist to deliver to them over and above, help them compete, win, and succeed, right? So what's an experience you had maybe in that industry or another industry where you had to take their ways of doing business, their standard operating processes, and still go beyond in order to deliver a differentiating user experience?
Yeah, that's another good question, and probably a better way to answer that is everything we've learned has been in hindsight, where we've done this and then wish we would have done that. And just to give you an example, we had a product come out and it had, basically there was a separate on-off switch, and then the user interface, which was, right there front and center with the display. Well, it seemed intuitive that, people would, locate the on-off switch and then understand how to use the, the user interface. But because so much design, development, and effort went into that user interface, and the on-off switch was just such a simple switch that, we actually had a few consumers that, just weren't aware that there was an on-off switch. So we had product returns. Hey, this product doesn't work. I pushed all these buttons. It didn't come on. Like, well, yeah, there's a separate on-off switch to enable that. So, simple things like that you just don't think about, till you kind of learn the hard way. Could have easily developed an interface where, you touch any one of the user interface buttons and that, initializes the product, but we didn't, and we wish we would have.
Right, and it's
And then the next the next generation obviously moved in that direction.
And this is an example of something one of our audience members might say, oh, that's a good idea. I could use it in the future. So I think that it's great that, as part of what we are trying to do is give people actionable things that they can do based on the insights that you gained. So take us back a little bit into, did you get in college some experience or some training with user experience, or did that come after you were in the profession?
Yeah, no, user experience definitely came after the fact, and definitely kind of trial by fire. It did start to come up as a topic. You would see it as in PowerPoint slides talking about starting to focus a little bit more on the user experience. To limit either product returns or product adoption in the market. And then when you think about that, it really brings up some thought-provoking questions, because a lot of times, especially from the hardware side or the engineering side, somebody may say, hey, we need a chip that can deliver this waveform. Well, that's perfect, give me a spec, a waveform, we can make that happen. But to go beyond that and think, what are, after this goes into a product and all the other little bells and whistles are added onto it, what is the overall user experience at the very end product? It was something that we never, had to think about really. But now we see that more and more kind of evolving in the industry, that being brought up to try to look forward and think forward and be proactive to, I guess, mitigate all the risks that could potentially affect the user experience in, not necessarily a bad or negative way, but not the most beneficial way.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, and actually that brings up an experience I recall from earlier in my career. Zilog had been succeeding and Intel lusted after their mark, so they came out with this new, it's going to be the winner. And so unfortunately, one of the things that Intel did not think about very well was the guidance, the implementation. How do you code to this microprocessor? And so a company called Hunter and Reddy filled that gap. But this is something that you could say, well, I wish Intel would have done. But for a lot of people, looking at a standard product and saying, what can I do beyond that to enhance the user experience is actually a very good business opportunity.
Yes, yeah. And it's funny because we were all just sitting out in the waiting room just kind of having a general chat, and the topic came up about, product development and time to market and all these things, and we all kind of came up with this similar theme where, there's a big drop, technology is moving at such a fast pace, and we're all pushing to move at a fast pace and be first to market and that time to market. And I think what we're kind of slowly learning is somewhere within that space is this perfect pace that makes sense, where maybe we add more user experience and those kind of development efforts. We've certainly been great at painting the picture of all around that perfect pace of, when things are maybe too fast and maybe too slow.
All right. Well, let's close up our conversation with maybe one or two tips you would give to somebody to make them a really effective deliverer of user experiences.
Yeah, so I think like us, just to kind of have a theme. Again, we picked simplicity for several reasons. One of them was, we don't want to be overly complex. We're very good at that. If we were to take that mindset away, we would make everything so complicated because we can. And it's kind of, I don't know why, but it feels like the thing to do. Like, you can't just come out with a flathead screwdriver anymore. you know. That's been done. You know, you have to have a screwdriver that has multiple tips, right? Or you could have the screwdriver package with, you know, 500 different tips. But at what point is the user really gonna, you know, use all of that and create the best value? It's an art.
All right. Well, I want to thank our guest, Daryl New, who's the president and founder of Quantum Innovation and Execution. Can't forget the execution part. And I hope you've taken away something that can valuably assist your efforts today in delivering compelling and exciting user experiences.